Another loss on the road capped off a miserable week on a pitch for Reading after the Stockport reverse, and now 2-0 against the Orient away in East London. Left us Peril-y, well, not perilously, but, you know, I'm mixing up my words already. I've had enough already, Ross. I don't know what's going on.
Right? What's going on?
Peril-y, is Peril-y a word? Perilously
Peril-y.
away from the playoffs, if you can be. 1 point outside the playoffs. It's been a miserable week. It's howling a gale here in Tilehurst at the moment. The rain is lashing down. We're still in bloody January, and I've had enough.
Just remember, you're not still in dry January, so it can be worse.
This is true. Yeah, I don't believe in that nonsense. Ross, we're episode 405. We did 404 last week after a loss. We've got another loss now, but it is Tyler Binden's birthday.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that is.
I thought you was fanboy.
You would think I would know that kind of stuff. Technically, though, his birthday falls, off the pitch, so that's not really in my field of expertise. Well, happy birthday to Tyler. Then that's an exciting, and he's still here. He's still in RG2. So hey, there you go.
He's 20. He's 20, Ross.
I know. He wouldn't be able to buy a beer if he went to the bar with me in Portland. It's insane. By the way, speaking of Portland, we had an earthquake this morning. An actual earthquake. Yeah.
What?
We felt it. Yeah, it was very odd. I was just suddenly like, there's a load of noise, and my wife and I are looking at each other like, hang on a minute, that's very, very odd. And like, you suddenly feel everything's shaking a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, it's gone. It's only like 10 seconds. But anyway, that's what's going on. I just suddenly brought up Portland, Maine. I wanted to tell you the very exciting things that are happening over here.
Well, earthquakes, Binden's birthday, and a 2-0 loss. I mean, thanks as always to ZC Said Films. It's we obviously always say that, and we are thankful. We're thankful to you guys for sticking with us as well. You may have gathered from the media. The media coverage, but the social media post that we put up, we didn't want to do last week's pod. We've got a lot to say on this one. I think a bit of perspective potentially would be needed given recent results and the kind of opposition that we've come up against. Ross has got some stuff about the Noel Hunt style of play versus a little bit of the old manager, who we won't mention by name because we're petty and childish. But
Ruben Sellers.
Wow.
Anyway, carry on.
We've done that now, so that's. But yeah, we're going to get into a few little bits and bobs. Overall, we are coming to the end of a tricky month. We got 2 games coming up this week: Burton away and Bolton at home. So hopefully, by the time we talk to you this time next week, we'll have something on the board in terms of points. We desperately need them, really, just to kind of up morale a little bit. We've done all right to get to this point without losing players at this stage, but we are 27th of January now, so we've still got a few days left to go. We'll see. But thanks as always to ZC Said Films who keep going. Voldemar and his team, bless them. We love them, and hope they love what we do as well. We're going to get into the recap. I'm still going to call it Brisbane Road. I don't care what it's called now.
Call it that.
Goan Group Stadium. I don't know. Brisbane Road.
I went to school in Bournemouth, and that stadium will always be Dean Court to me. So I haven't stopped calling it the Medeski. So it's what it is, isn't it? So there you go.
Yeah.
Call it what you like.
We're going to get into it, and we'll see. We'll see why we came a cropper in the game against the Orient after this short break.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Rs!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
Right, welcome back to episode 405 of the Tilehurst Then podcast. I will do my best not to make up words like Peril-y and whatever I said last week. So, we'll do our best to do that. Good news, Ross. I'm on John Wick Chapter 4 now.
Oh, okay. So you've really... that's good to know.
I've had a good week. In a way, I've done one. Did one when I spoke to you last time. I did 2, did 3, and now I'm on chapter 4, and it's just scrambled my brain, to be honest.
Last time we spoke to the manager, Noel, we spoke to him about Home Alone. So maybe if we get him back on, you'll have to ask him what he thinks of John Wick just to get all the important questions asked, you know.
I love him. I can't believe I've waited this long for it to be in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Did you just not have enough Keanu in your life, and you were like, right, I got
Well,
to
yeah,
solve that, or
yeah.
you know, we'll just like watch these John Wick movies, but and you'll like them.
I mean, my favorite actor of all time is Denzel Washington,
Okay, good choice.
who I love, and I
Yeah,
watched all the Equalizers over Christmas again because they're just brilliant films.
nice.
And then I was like, you know, I'm going to give John Wick a go, and it's just spiraled out of control. So yeah, I binged them if you can binge movies.
I like it. Well, I'm glad to hear you've got, you know, something to tide you over while Reading are losing, because you've been watching the Equalizer. We're not scoring equalizers. So there you go. There's the link for you.
Yeah, you've done it. I was going to say talking of equalizers, but you've done it.
Oh, yeah.
We never looked like we were going to get one really. Well, I think, you know, if you kind of run through the stats very quickly, we had 3 shots in total.
Yeah.
2 on target, both reasonably tame efforts. One header from Dean, and the other one from, you know, just the edge of box from Charlie Savage. But compared to their 12 in total and 7 on target, we were never really in the game. Possession wise, we were well off it. I think they strung together, you know, about 20, 30 more passes than we did in the entire game. And it wasn't a good day really. They scored on 29 minutes through Markande, and then 51 with Charlie Kelman getting that one, and that was that really for the Royals on their travels in London.
Yeah.
We off air, Ross, we were talking about the goals again, and really it's the same old, and I think that's what is getting really, really frustrating for not just us doing this podcast, but fans of the club anyway. It's just that Groundhog Day all the time, carbon copies of these goals. Talk us a little bit about how the first goal came about. Take nothing away from the finish and the composure, but wholly avoidable really in two periods of the pitch, or 2 areas of the pitch. Talk us through that first goal.
Yeah, like Reading have lost the ball in the middle of the pitch, which, you know, from what we've been trying to do for the last 2 years, we know that winning the ball higher up the field is a way that you can create chaos in the opposition backline, and it certainly created some chaos in our backline. If you look at the makeup of the chasing midfield on the Reading side, when Orient get that ball back and they start breaking towards our goal, we're just out of shape. You know, like Wing is out in the sort of the right 8 position. Nibs is the one who's furthest back in the middle, and Savage is chasing his man on the other side. The issue for me, and it sucks because we were really excited about the fullbacks, you know, the real fullbacks being back this week for Reading, even though, you know, neither of them are fullbacks. They are a centre back and a centre mid. But we were excited about them being back. And what was disappointing about this first goal for me is that it came from a pass that we've seen tear Reading apart over and over again this year, regardless of who's playing there. Garcia had trouble with this. Dorset had trouble with this. And basically anyone has. So it's basically the pass whereby you often see the right-sided 8 make it, whereby the winger, the right-sided winger will be trying to basically start his run towards the touchline on the outside. He's trying to end his run when the ball arrives, basically in the space in between the left-sided centre-back Bindon and the left-back for us. So basically he's trying to run into the seam. The midfielder will play the ball through that seam. And Dorset lays out to try and stop that pass going through. But when you're leaving those sorts of distances in between, and these are going to be distances we're going to see more often with the kind of changes to build up that have been happening, then, you know, we're leaving a big hole for people to reach the box. And once they reach the box, look, I think Bindon could have maybe done a little bit better in that situation, which, if I'm criticizing Bindon, like he definitely should have done it maybe a little bit better. But in any case, there's a structural issue there whereby we've been getting beat by the same pass all season and we get beat by it again. So last week I was moaning about things that haven't changed on the set piece defending that we keep getting beaten by. I suppose this is an open play thing that we keep getting beaten by. And we need to be really careful about those spaces between the centre back and the full back.
Well, I mean, the first pass is a short pass, completely unchallenged in the middle of the park there, really. And yeah, it is a good goal in terms of the fact that I think he turns Dean inside out. Really, very nice composure to get the ball, around Pereira and into the bottom of the net. But again, it's just really, really frustrating. And the second goal, to be honest, was even worse. Short corner, ball comes in, they fail to clear it, and it is essentially poked home. I mean,
they've not known how to deal with those all year,
right.
By the way. Like, we've talked about assignments on set plays, and those assignments occasionally seeming a little off, but nobody seems to know who goes first when there's a short corner. It happens on both sides. Ben Elliott was having trouble with it when he was playing as the right-sided 8. Savage and Dorset have trouble with it. They don't seem to have an immediate answer for who goes when it's a short corner, which leads to, it's just a split second of like, oh crud, are you going? Am I going? Like, so there's no, exactly. So then there's no challenge, and they get a free cross off into the box. So, and it's these tiny little margins in football. Obviously, like, we get a little bit of leeway in League One, whereby you make a mistake and you give someone a really great shot and they spaff it out of the stadium because it's League One. But these kind of little things happen as well, whereby you give a player 1 extra second to make his pass, and suddenly that goes from like a League One quality pass to, oh, he was actually quite a good player. And he knows what he's doing when he's got space on the ball, kind of thing. So, just we really need to work out who goes when it's a short corner.
I mean, it's easy to get carried away. We were pretty doom and gloom last week because we got well beaten against a good Stockport side. Again, you could argue that, not argue, but the facts are there that Orient are a team in form, and they're only going one way at the moment. Is it just a case of us coming up against good teams at the wrong time to really show where we are at? Is it right to be frustrated with the drop-off in terms of the previous manager and where we are now with Noel Hunt in terms of form? Is it down to loss of key players? Is it the fact that we're not creating anything at all in midfield at the moment, and we're leaving it all to Sam Smith to do on his own? Like, what is... I guess really what is the main issue for you at the moment within this team, and what can be fixed, going into Burton tomorrow night?
Look, I think that it's obviously not the best run right now, like in terms of results. We lost 3 now in a row, so it's obviously not the best run right now. Okay, so 3 in a row, but one of those being in the FA Cup against Burnley. So we got a point on the road against Charlton, which was a good point. I was disappointed with the Stockport loss, but I'm going to be honest, I wasn't as bothered by this one. I think that there are some clear issues that we need to solve, but I wasn't as bothered by this one. We had more final third entries than Orient. Possession was around the same. The real issue for us is that we weren't creating shots, and we weren't creating enough opportunities to shoot, really. And I think that for me, I spoke about this a little bit on Blue Sky, and just a reminder, I'm on Blue Sky now and still doing tactic stuff, all that kind of fun stuff.
Just a non-blatant reminder that I'm not on Twitter anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Just a non-blatant reminder. But I was kind of thinking yesterday, I watched the Stockport game back. I don't know why, but I did. And something that I noticed, it was kind of like a pattern of play that I was seeing a lot, and a pattern of play that I wasn't seeing a lot. So apologies, bear with me here, listeners, as I just go through this. Something that we used to see a lot under Sellers was a kind of play whereby Wing would drop really, really far, and you'd almost get a 3-2 build up. So Wing would almost be in between Bindon and Mbengue at times, and Bindon would go quite far out to the left. That pushed Dorset really, really high out, often all the way up to the halfway line on the left in build up. And what we'd often get happening with that would be Wing or Mbengue, whoever, swinging the ball, recycling it back around from one side of the defensive line, and then trying to go all the way out to Dorset, who would then play a pass, kind of a bounce pass into Nibs, who is running then the correct way towards goal to try and be creative. So basically, it's a bounce pass off the fullback. The fullback has his back to goal. The 8 is then going to come through, and he's going to be going into the attacker's half, facing the right way. So this is a good opportunity to be creative. I wasn't seeing that so much watching Stockport. What I was seeing instead was a kind of movement across the back whereby wing is actually more in that second line of build up almost all the time. So it's kind of a 2-3 whereby the fullbacks are incredibly high. And then there's a huge amount of space kind of sitting there whereby the only way Reading seem to want to progress the ball is to go centrally and to have an 8 drop back towards that ball to pick it up. Problem with that is he's now facing towards his own goal. So he's got to turn before he can be creative. And if we're seeing this pattern a lot, I think it is going to limit kind of like how many, I don't know, just like how much momentum we enter the final third with. And, you know, like if we're entering the final third against a packed defense, it's obviously a very different thing versus, you know, a spread apart, spaced out defense. And we're just not getting the ball through that final third quick enough right now. I think this particular pattern of play might be something to do with that. And it really does come down to which way is the center mid facing, you know, when he gets the chance to be creative. Is he facing his own goal and he has to turn, or can he just get on with it right away? It's these little seconds, again, like we talked about with the short corner. It's 1 or 2 seconds in the middle of a play, but it completely changes the momentum of how a play comes together. So yeah, I think that overall, in terms of keeping things solid, it wasn't the worst performance against Orient. Most of their shots are from either wide spaces or from outside of the box. But just the way in which we're creating right now, it's just so slow once we get to that final third. So, I think that's the big issue.
Do you, all those things considered, and you know they are good points. Do you understand where people are coming from when they criticize Hunt in terms of his style and you know potentially his philosophy in terms of where he wants this team to play? Or do you think, given everything that we've consistently and repeatedly talked about, it just is what it is?
I think there are some things that are due for questioning. I think criticism's too strong of a word at this point, because for me, I don't think there's no world, there's no universe in which Hunt is gone before the end of the season, right? I think that there's 100% chance Hunt starts next season as Reading manager. And so at this stage, I'm kind of more interested in, okay, what can be altered rather than, oh, this is bad and it's never going to change. He's a very young coach. He's new-ish in his coaching career, so he is going to learn and adapt to things. I think that he has been affected a lot. I've said this a few times on the pod, but he's been affected a lot by personnel over the past few weeks, and that he has had to chop and change some things. I do like that he's given repeated chances to Garcia at left wing. I thought that he's one of the few guys that can be creative by himself. You know, when I was watching the Stockport game back. One thing I do think is perhaps up for questioning is the in-game management. And this is something that we've seen as an issue where, so for instance, the second half of this particular game, Reading were poor attacking in general. They generated 0.16 XG all game. They didn't deserve to score a goal against Orient. But the real worrying thing is after the second goal goes in, they don't generate anything. There's no more shots. There's no more XG. There's nothing left. So there should be a point, you know, midway through the second half or something where you think something's got to tweak, something's got to change. We've got to adjust how many men are in midfield or something to, you know, to adjust how we're coming out here. So I have a kind of idea, but you look ready to go. So tell me what you're thinking.
Well, that's still 40 minutes left to play, by the way. You know, they scored in 51 minutes. So you're basically going a half of football.
Yeah.
Well, including injury time, where you don't do anything. So, you know, is that a kind of, right, we'll just shut up shop and make sure it's not 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, you know, like we've seen in some previous away games this season? Or is that just a kind of, we literally have no ideas, and because of lack of squad depth and you know, bench talent, if you like, turning into you, there's nothing else to affect the game?
I think that's fair.
Is that there? Because you know, Smith just looks tired again. He just looks absolutely. You know, you cannot fault the effort of these players. I just think they run out of ideas very, very quickly. You know, it's like we've tried nothing and it doesn't work, sort of syndrome, and it's, the energy and the commitment there is there. You saw that against Stockport last week. The commitment to the cause was there, but there was just no kind of ingenuity in terms of trying to break them down, from an attacking sense. And this was exactly the same thing. Orient could have gone on and got another 2 or 3 had they bothered themselves. It's just, we've talked about, the Harley Dean redemption arc, but what he brings in, solidity and consistency, we lose in him actually being a ball player and taking the ball forward. What we get in terms of energy from Savage and Nibs, we don't have in terms of creativity at the moment, whereas we probably would have that with Elliott. There's no real link up between the midfield and Smith. And ultimately, like that first goal proves, and as it did in the whole game, that the central midfield at the moment just looks very, very lost in this system. They don't seem to know, you mentioned Wing earlier, but they don't seem to know their roles, whereas they did, very, very clearly under Sellers. And, they had direction there. They don't seem to have that now. And I do think...
Well, sorry, I was just going to say, I do think there have been, I do agree with Hunt's idea that there have been changes to how teams are playing against us, in that they are kicking the ball over the top of us quite frequently. Another thing that's happening more now, so you look at the second half of the game against Orient, we had 55% of the ball. Teams have worked out that if you just let us have the ball and you sit deep in your low block, we don't really have a winger who can pull apart. Chem Campbell's very good in like small little spaces, and he makes some like good little passes and interchanges with the right back and Nibs. That's been statistically our best side for attacks all year, has been coming through that, but we really don't have a player outside of like Garcia once or twice against Stockport who can get around his fullback and just create a bit of panic in the middle. I saw in the Stockport game when I was watching it back, Kelvin did it once when he came back as a sub, and I was so excited that he had even thought to take his man on in the first place. And I think teams have worked out, they just kick the ball over the top of us so that we can't win it high, and then let us have the ball while they sit in a sort of mid or low block. We don't have the creativity to pull that apart right now. And I think, we look at last year and the whole of the last 12 to 13 months, really, when we've been playing some pretty good football, we've scored a lot of long goals. We scored some of the, we're one of the teams that scored the most long goals, in the country. So we've scored quite a few that were lucky in inverted commas, and you're always going to revert to the mean with that eventually. So
it's not really total football when we score, is it? Smash
it. And we said that under Sellers too, to be fair, that we were having a lot of trouble with creating, and that we were a good transition team, that we could take the ball from back to front very, very quickly. But we just weren't very good when we got to the final third. Like I said, we were in the final third more than Leyton Orient on Saturday, and we were more accurate in our passing around the final third too, which is madness. But just not got the pieces to pick it apart, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, we talk about Burton and a very small amount of Bolton in the preview. But tomorrow night, if I've calculated this accurately, we could go as high as 5th,
okay,
and as low as 11th.
We've surrendered our gap.
Yeah, that's the problem now, is that it's very, very congested. And I think, looking at the table, there was a lot of people like, "Wow, we just got to stay up." I think we can do better than stay up. Personally, I still think we can compete. Certainly.
By the way, while we're talking League One table, wait, Ben, I'm really sorry. You mentioned last week the comments that the Bolton manager had made, or maybe the week before he was roundly moved on, and I was
gone.
he basically, I didn't realize that he had basically said, he basically fired himself in the interview with the post-match commentator. So that's the hot League One news from around the horn.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very congested. That there will be. I think that the top 4 now will be the ones that are looking for automatic promotion. There's obviously a fairly big gap between Huddersfield and Birmingham. with Birmingham with the game in hand as well. But I can't really see Stockport breaking into it. There is a bit of a gap there, and they've got a game over on Huddersfield. But those top four, so there'll be there'll be a team that is literally very close to automatics, but miles away from fourth place by the end of the season. If we can nick the sixth, that will be really, really good. The problem for us is that Lincoln, Charlton, and Bolton are all gaining on us now, and our goal difference, apart from comparison to Bolton's, is pretty grim, really. In the case of Leyton Orient, it's exactly the same, but they've got plus 10 goal difference now, which is worth a point. So it is tricky. It was in our hands. Now it looks as though we're kind of chasing again. That said, Bolton come to town on Saturday, so it is in our hands a little bit. Let's talk, or move to the mailbag, listeners' corner, as I call it. There's a few little bits and pieces in there that we can get into, and then we'll talk about, the week ahead off the pitch, and then get into the preview afterwards. So short break, and then we will be back with the mailbag.
Send in your views to the tilehurstend@gmail.com and have your say in the mailbag.
Alrighty, welcome back to episode 405 of the Tilehurst End podcast, brought to you in association with ZCZ Films, as always, with myself, Ben Thomas, and of course Ross Webber. He's wearing a hat indoors. Can't be that cold, can it?
It's still freezing cold. I had meetings with minus 20. Okay, so I had a meeting. Speaking of minus 20, I had a meeting with a client in Milwaukee last week, and I was asking everybody, because there's been a winter storm here in America, and a cold snap, like, how cold is it around you? They said, oh, it's okay. It's returned to the 0 sort of mark. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, Fahrenheit. So that's already like -8 or something. So I was like, oh, okay, well, how cold was it? They're like minus 20 Fahrenheit. I'm like, how?
What's that in proper temperature?
It's minus 20 Fahrenheit in Celsius is, let me see here, listeners, minus 28. So it's
not. How's that in America?
Minus 28 Celsius in Minnesota.
Okay, all right, fine, yeah. Right,
in Maine right now, the worst it got to was minus 20 Celsius. So, I've got it much easier over here. Like I said to you, again, on Blue Sky, you can follow us on Blue Sky. It is colder than the Whitley Bowl over here now.
But surely stuff stops working at minus 20. Surely.
It depends on how much grit you've got for the roads, and they've got a lot of grit over here. So, things just keep moving.
Minus 20.
Yeah. It's lovely. It's great. I love it. I can't. But anyway, that's why I'm wearing a hat inside.
I think I'd die if it was minus 20.
Oh, wait, for the... It isn't good, no, mate. For real quick, for the YouTube watchers, watch us on YouTube. Thank you, Ryan. This is a Mohun Bargain Super Giant shirt. Yes, which I'm very excited about.
It looks like the sort of thing that you get in a European market when you're on holiday, and it's like, yeah, buy this.
Yeah,
what's it? Who's it made by?
You haggle for it in lira, even if you're not in a country that takes lira.
It's got more sponsors than anything.
Yeah, it does, and I like it because obviously it's English. It's Indian. Sorry, so it's so Mohun Bagan are the champions of the Indian league, basically. A friend who used to play
by Cement.
Sponsored by Cement. There's Skechers on the side up here as well. All kinds of fun things. So thank you very much, Arjo, for bringing this back. This is very, very kind of you. I've got the home shirt on the wall as well. Which is great. So the home's on the wall and the away is here. So anyway, Mohun Bargain, Super Giant, that's my club of the day. They beat the RAF, which is considered a seminal point in Indian independence. So anyway, that's my shirt history for you today.
Crikey. Well, moving away from British imperialism for a minute. If we could. Just... ironically, you couldn't write this pod. We have we have a question from Brother Teresa. Sparkzilla 13. Question for the mailbag: would it be nuts to try Lewis Ring at right back?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do you want me to go on, or I thought you were just going to throw it out?
No, you go. Well, hang on. Is there more to the question? Or?
Yeah, he's experienced and has a dirty side to his game to dominate that area of the pitch. Could still influence a game in similar ways to Hart or Shorey, and maybe get some younger box-to-box legs in midfield. I mean, that's not a bad shout, actually, is it?
When he puts it together like that, it does sound good. The thing that makes me panic about that, we talked about like closing gaps between like the center back and the fullback, right? Is that I love Lewis Wing, but he moves around like someone flipped a bulldozer upside down, and they're trying to push it through sand. So I don't think that he's quite fast enough to pick that up. I think that's been the other. You mentioned Smith looks tired this year, and I think Wing looks tired. Has been my that's been the kind of one where I watch it,
and that's exactly why he won't leave this window, because will he want to go to another League One club? No, he'd want to go Championship, but there's absolutely no way that he would be able to do Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday. So. The positive with that is that a tired Wing stays at Reading.
Yeah, yeah. It's getting a bit weird, isn't it? Like it's almost like we've gone through this run at quite a good time, because we're kind of putting on these performances where nobody looks fantastic.
In the early days, a lot of people were like, well, the players are really worried about the ownership stuff. And it's become a bit of a joke now. Like, they're professionals. They should be able to just try and block some of that out. Obviously they didn't get paid once. It wasn't on time, to my knowledge. I don't think it's happened again, and that gets brought up a lot. But, I always look at teams generally and players that potentially are on a move or looking at a move at any level at this time of year. And the performance does kind of drop off a bit, because there's a little bit of anxiety there. They don't know, particularly with these players at Reading, where, they might want to stay, but it might not be their choice. And the club might go, yeah, we've just got 500 grand for you. See you later. You're going to, I don't know, Crawley, God forbid. But like, do you know what I mean? Like a lot of this could well be out of their hands. So
right.
I think
if they're going to Crawley, it's definitely out of their hands.
Well, this is it. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it would be interesting to see what the team selection is tomorrow night and how the performance is, because it has to be better. Better than it has been previously.
Well, and it's been a while since they've played a team that they probably would expect to beat going into the game. I feel like even the Charlton game, really, that wasn't necessarily one that they would have expected to win going into it. So, I mean, really, it's been since the Cambridge game, and that was January 1st. The last time they played a team I think they reasonably expected to beat. Obviously, again, we wanted them to beat Stockport as well, and they didn't.
It was about 15 months ago, that game.
I hardly remember that.
I don't have an issue with Lewis Wing at right back. What we're desperate for is absolute consistency at fullback, and we're not going to get it this season, because Dorset's gone down again, chopping and changing. Like I don't know. I don't think Rashish is the answer. Why not?
I'd like to see. So I get where this is coming from, because obviously more last season than this season, Wing would go out to that right back spot quite a lot to kind of whip balls over. I can see the benefit of kind of having him closer to that spot, but I do think that his legs wouldn't allow him to play right back personally. So what I would instead maybe do, and I think this could be a good idea to kind of solve some of the midfield issues that we have at the moment. I might go back for a couple games to the 4-2-3-1 we used at times last year. We didn't use it loads and loads. It's basically the way in which it changes the system is that we go from 2 8s, so kind of 2 box-to-box midfielders, to 2 6s. So 2 midfielders whose primary job is to do, the build-up play and the defensive play and the creativity in that regard. I think maybe dropping Savage onto that left 6 spot and leaving Wing on the right 6 spot, and just giving the midfielders a little bit less to do might be quite a good idea. Because I was watching Stockport, like I said, I know I've said this a million times, but I just kept seeing the ball go over the top.
It was last week, don't you? We needed.
I know it was last week. Yeah. I know it was the week. I know. I just, once I get
EFL when their schedules.
Blame the EFL. Yeah, exactly. I've still seen the Orient stuff. It's just clips, whereas I'm watching, Anyway, the thing that was bothering me is that they keep chucking the ball up or they're trying to like build up, and then there's 5 players who are standing just too far away to actually receive a pass or be able to compete for a pass, not in the air. So why not just bring one of those back to help out with the creativity and the build up? And then, yes, you can see the player a little bit, further down the field, but we're not getting the ball into the final third with any kind of speed right now. So I think that maybe putting Savage on the left and Wing on the right in a double pivot could be the way to go.
You're missing that, that progressive play from Mbengue that we talked about, on the pod and off the pod. So you need that link, you need someone to go and get the ball and then move it forward, and that's just not happening at the moment. It's all very disjointed, and you're right, like the midfield are getting through so much work, it's unreal. Against Burnley, I know it went to extra time, but Savage, bless him, was just dead on his feet. He was absolutely like, I can't. I've got nothing else to give. And they're playing a lot of football at the moment. They are.
Well, that's what I was just going to say is that they're not really playing like a lot of football right now. They're playing week, whereas they're going to go back into, week Tuesday, which is even worse. So I am starting to get a little bit concerned about the fatigue in the squad for sure, which is probably something I should have been more worried about when I predicted the season. But hey, who cares?
Talking of fullbacks, Sam Richards, thoughts on the best way forward at left back? Dorset constantly injured, not Garcia's natural position, and very likely he could be off anyway, which is a good point. We haven't even talked about that. Carney really struggling and making costly errors. Bring Yeardom or a briefer into the position, or try something else. Well, I think given the amount of different options or different players that we have had at that position, means that we're probably at we're exhausted list stage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's anything else to try there, Sam, to be honest with you. I
really like a Brafer best of that group.
Is he ready to come in and play regular football though?
Was Michael Craig ready to come in and play regular right back football at the start of the year? Who knows? I agree that there aren't very good solutions there, and if we had been able to bring in a left back, I do think that I'm sure Brian Carey has a full folder of left backs just waiting to go for the moment that he's actually like set free. I just want to imagine Brian Carey's kind of like, he's like tied to the ground or something like that. And one day he'll be let free, to do all of his recruitment and everything.
He's like the guy who's kept all his Star Wars figures in the box. They'll have something one day and they're worth about 15 quid.
Right. As he watches the degeneration of Lewis Wing's ACL.
Exactly. Yeah. It's God, it's just such a rubbish state of affairs, isn't it? Honestly, we're laughing about having a folder of left backs we can never possibly buy.
Yeah.
That's how low it's got. Andy, I'm looking forward to Pint Watch this week. Andy, let me know what the Bolton Pint's like on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Andy Taylor, if nothing's happened by the summer window, are we able to offer new contracts to players at the end of theirs? Absolutely no idea. I would imagine you can.
I would imagine that they can as well. I don't think. Oh, wow. The only thing that might come into it, I guess, is the skeleton in the closet, which is the accounts. But the less said about that, the better. And I don't know. That's a very good point. I was, I'm not. I think we'll talk about it next week because if we talk about it this week, it's just bound to be that we'll sell a ton of players coming this week now. But if we get out of this window without having sold too many players, then I think we're going to be ready for a Tilehurst end chat about the contract situation coming up in the summer, because it's everybody's favorite time of the year to be a Reading fan, either January or the summer. It'll be.
I was going to ask you a question, but I'm not even going to bother now. I'll just wait till. Well, actually, no, because if I ask you next week, it'll be completely irrelevant. So I'm not going to ask it.
Oh, okay.
For that reason, I don't want
mysterious.
I don't want to poke the whale or whatever the phrase is.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask me if Binden's gone.
No, I wasn't going to ask you actually. No.
All right.
Actually, I'll ask you because it's not going to rest on whether or not I ask it on a pod that is listened to by Reading fans. If it actually happens or not, it's just nonsense. Would you? So I'll give you the choice right now on the 27th of January, with
Sure.
4 days left to go. Would you rather bring a new player in for a key position, or not let anyone go from the current squad? Given the choice.
Can I add one question back for you? Does the player who comes in, are they only here until the summer? Because that makes my decision for me. Because if you say,
I haven't thought this through.
yeah, it's a
Yeah, until
2-year
the summer.
contract until the
No, not
summer.
until- Yeah.
All right, then keep the current squad. If it's a 2-year contract, then actually, but like it doesn't seem that we're able to do that. Like we Chem Campbell our way through the season, so.
Well, this is a good point from Andy. Like I don't know the logistics. I would imagine that if they are out of contract, having left us technically out of contract, we can offer them a contract to stay. What we can't do is then bring in a player and go, like Chem Campbell, here's a 2-year contract.
Yeah,
That's my understanding. But to be honest, it is absolutely exhausting to try and keep up with what we can and can't do. And we've said this time and again, Reading fans have done so well to keep up with the legality and the stipulations and everything involving player contracts and transfers or non-transfers. It's quite incredible, really. So,
right.
Okay, so you're saying we should keep the current
squad. Yeah, I think it's too, especially because there's like quite a few players who are on reasonably. I mean, there's a few players who are on decent contracts. So yeah, I think that's what I would do. But that is accepting that you lose Tyler Bidden for nothing in the summer, because there's no way that we'll be able to. Because if I was him, actually, now if I'm thinking about it, it might be the best thing for him that he just lets it run out, continues to have a good rest of the year with Reading, and then goes on, gets a signing bonus, and gets probably double his money, if not more, wherever he goes next. So, especially because if he's not going for a transfer fee, there's more money there for the signing on bonus.
I think if we were in mid-table and slipping, there might be a few more people, I say pushing, but actively trying to go, I want to get out of it. You just don't know. Like we could spend the next 4 days talking about it consistently and hypothesizing what may or may not happen. You just don't know. You don't know what it looks like inside the club. No. So
you make a really good point about if we were mid-table and slipping, then it might be more pertinent. Like I do worry a little bit that the position that we got ourselves into in the first half of the season is going to allow us to just sort of slide for the rest of the year. And I hope that Noel is able to show us, no, that's not the case. Like he has the ability to motivate the squad and get them going again. But I do worry a little bit that there may be a tendency to just not quite, put your foot in for that challenge that might get you hurt every single game until the end of the season, just because of where we are in the table and how futile making the playoffs can feel at times. Because
I think once the window's closed, I think we'll pick up again. I do. Because then everyone knows where they stand and there is uncertainty around that at any club, let alone ours. So
I hope you're right.
So do I. Right. I still think we will fall short of the playoffs. I really do. Purely because I think there's better teams around us, and 2 teams this week have proved that. Orient and Stockport, we've been roundly beaten by those 2. And from a mental point of view, it's like, okay, those teams around us are better, and they are.
See, that's the thing for me. Like Stockport, I think, they were better than us, but Orient, I just don't think they were. And I think it came down to the finishing. And if we just had a little bit of finishing, a bit more finishing ability on the field as well as on in the squad, if Chem was worth a few more goals, if the left winger was worth it. Has Garcia scored a professional goal yet? I don't think he has. So like if we could just, if our forward, if we weren't relying on one forward, if we were relying on like 2 or 3 forwards who could score, like every 3 games or something, then this Reading team would be even higher up. And it's just frustrating because they're not that much depth away from being a really good squad. The bones are here. And yes, there are issues with patterns of playing and creativity. But the bones of a very talented squad are here, and it drags you through enough games.
Yeah, true. that rounds off the mailbag. To be honest,
It's been quieter the last 2 weeks when we
always
lose. It's
is.
always quieter when we lose.
Always
Yeah.
is. People just want to move on from it and go on to the next game.
Yeah.
And
I do
talking of
want
the
to hear
next
about
game,
the pint though, real quick. From Andy. Was it Andy who tells you about the pints?
yeah, he sends me. He normally gets in earlier. I've never met him actually. It's ridiculous, but the
Okay.
Dolan's not exactly massive. But
You
yeah,
need to go and have a lukewarm pint with him.
I know. Well, he's it's not a bad one today, but it's nice to know.
Yeah.
Normally if he
Yeah.
goes, it's rubbish. Then I save myself £5.40
That's
or whatever
fair.
it is.
Well, Andy, Saturday is February 1st, so have one for me as well. If you're feeling, should I have that extra one? You said, yes, I should, because Ross told me I'll
'Cause
have
it's
one
not
for him
January.
as well. Yeah.
It's
So when your
celebrating.
wife says, Andy, should you have another one? You say, yes, because Ross told me to. So it's fine.
Exactly. Well, I mean, look, talking of the next games and what happens, we've got we go to Burton on Trent, Peril-y Stadium tomorrow. They are we're going to talk about that now. We're going to talk about that in the preview in the final part of episode 405. So we do that right now.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
Welcome back to the final part of this week's pod. Joining myself, Ben Thomas and Ross. Burton Albion, Burton on Trent, Peril-y Stadium. It's slightly ironic that Pirelli sponsor one of the best clubs or the most famous clubs in the world in Inter Milan,
Right.
and yet somehow they've managed to get the exclusive sponsorship rights to Burton's ground. But this is League One madness for you. This is League One.
Do you think we could get it one day? I wonder what league we'd have to go down to get the naming rights for a stadium, but that would be great. Yeah. The Ben and Ross Bowl.
I was thinking more the Purple Turtle Arena.
No. The Tilehurst End Terrace or something.
We might. Do you know what? We might end up sponsoring the stand one day if it gets that.
Yeah, exactly.
For £50 a month or whatever.
And we'll put it the Peril-y stand. They're just like the Peril-y Stadium.
I just don't know what I was trying to say, but anyway, I said it.
Anyway, what do you think about Burton? Wait, hang on. Ben's travel tour of the UK. Yeah, how's Burton?
Burton's all right. Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
nice.
Right.
There we go.
Look, I mean, the Brewers. I think it just shows you what a bonkers league this is. Really, they ended up beating Rotherham 4-2 at the weekend, but they are still effectively 6 points off safety. Down in 21st on 21 points. They won 4 games all season. 4 games.
Jeez,
that's the lowest in the league, actually. Looking at it, it's the lowest amount of games won in the entire league. Drawn 9, lost 14. They have, Ross, got John Daddy Budvarson amongst their ranks, who scored, I believe he scored on Saturday, actually. I think he scored a couple. Yeah, he did. He scored 2.
There you go.
I mean, unexpected result against Rotherham. Granted, they were at home. Rotherham sort of doing reasonably okay in mid-table, sort of looking on the up rather than down. It's a game that we have to get something out of, isn't it?
Yeah.
In reality, given, you mentioned the 3-game losing streak we're on. Granted, one of those was against Championship high flyers, Ban in the Cup, but losing 3 games on the trot in any competition is not really ideal.
No.
It's a game we have to get something out of.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that we should go into this thinking that we want to win. And like we said, we haven't really had that since the 1st of January. So it would have been 27 days by that point. So and again, because I just don't want to see the squad kind of just, simmer into a poor patch and then struggle to get out of it. Sometimes when you get really on a streak, it can get tough to break it. So I think they want to just get rid of that before, it becomes anything that's on anybody's mind. Burton, they looked absolutely dead and buried a week ago. By the way, they were on 15 points and now they're on 21 points, but there's a big gap between the relegation place teams and the teams above them. There's a 6-point gap, I think, between the relegation places and the teams above them, which has opened up. So obviously these teams are going to be scrapping pretty desperately at this point. They play a back three and a front two. I know that's not what Reading fans want to hear. We've had a lot of issues with both of those, and obviously last time out against Stockport with Wing just kind of getting surrounded by the press and by having two forwards right in our midfield. So again, maybe this is one where you go to that sort of 4-2 build up, you put in a double pivot with Savage a little bit further back, and you give more passing options in the build up play. It might not happen though, because this is at home, and I don't think Hunt is going to want to do anything that would appear to be surrendering the momentum of the game to Burton. It's at home. Oh no, it's not. Is it at home? Yeah, it is at home, right? We're playing them at home. Are we?
Who?
Burton. Are we playing them away? Oh no, we're at Peril-y Stadium. What am I talking about?
Literally just said that. What are you on about? I was like, who's home? Their home or our home?
No, you're fine. Don't worry. I'm just losing my mind. So, actually, no, that's better then. I was worried that we were going to be at home and that they were going to make us have the ball a whole bunch again. And
I was going to say they were one of the worst teams I've seen this season.
I
don't
even remember playing them.
So they were really, really bad, and deservedly beaten by us on the day. I think losing my voice, getting that nervous. I think it's a good opportunity to get back on track. And when I read you out our February, Ross, you'll understand why. So
sure.
Saturday we have Bolton come to town. The following Saturday we go to Huddersfield. Saturday after that we have Rotherham back in Reading. Okay. And then the Saturday after that we have Birmingham at home.
Sick.
So
all right.
that could be a very, very lean February.
Happy Valentine's Day, Reading fans. You'll be in love with your team come the 14th.
Exactly. And that's a really, really iffy February. You look at months that will define a season. That will really tell us where we're at, I think.
Big time, yeah.
We could be well off the pace come the 15th of February. So, I think it's really, really important, and the players will know, and everyone connected to the club will know that forget trying to get something out of the game. We have to get a win tomorrow night, really. Obviously, a point is nice, but getting 3 points is really quite essential if we're going to keep up this league position we're in. Bolton altogether, different kettle of fish because they've just got rid of Ian Evatt. I don't know if they've appointed yet. I hadn't checked before we went on air, but look,
no.
A change in manager always somehow manages to kick the team on, and we're probably playing them at a wrong time. Huddersfield, obviously, title contenders or at least automatic contenders at the moment. Rotherham are kind of pushing up, and then of course we've got Birmingham. So that's a really, really difficult February. I just feel that if we don't get a win tomorrow night, it might start to turn. Regardless of whether or not I agree with you about Noel staying until the end of the season at least. I can't see any changes there, but I just feel the mood would change a little bit more if we didn't get anything tomorrow night, and I really, really hope that we do. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting. It is on Sky Sports Plus, I think, or Extra, whatever the hell it's called.
Oh, there you go. That's
Sky
exciting.
Sports Plus. It's got the symbol of first aid next to Sky.
Do they televise every event at the Peril-y Stadium, or is it just when
this is
come to town?
Really, yeah. I think in terms of the Royal, because obviously we had Royals TV last year. I think it's a positive personally because there aren't going to be many people from Reading going to Burton tomorrow night, and actually it gives them an opportunity to watch the game as well. You can go into the whole where does the money go stuff, but from a fan. A fan's point of view, being able to watch that game tomorrow night is nice. So
the TV money's been worth more to the clubs than fan money, unfortunately, or fortunately, or most certainly unfortunately, for a very long time. And given that is the reality of the things, if they want to put a bit more money in our coffers to show more games, then sure, it is kind of what I think, especially the away games.
The coverage has got better as well. It's got a lot better this season in terms of what is essentially the old red button stuff. So
nice.
That's live tomorrow night, 7:45, Sky Sports Plus. Obviously, if you're making the trip up, if you're listening to this on the coach or in your car or public transport, go well.
Yeah.
Bring us back 3 points, because we really, really need them at the moment to keep us ticking over. So, yeah. And then, of course, we've got Bolton on Saturday, so we will be back Monday probably next week.
We've been nicely in rotation so far since 2025 started. We've been pushing at a good rate, and there is tactical information. Like I said, more tactic stuff coming. Maybe this week, maybe next. I'm not sure yet on Hunt versus Sellers, but kind of started talking about it a little bit today with some of those patterns of play that have just changed a little bit, and definitely more info coming there soon, because we're seeing more now from Hunt in terms of what he can do. So yeah, just kind of interested to, like you said just then, actually, it is kind of interesting to see where we're at in February. Even if it is really, really bad, well, that's still telling us some story to take a look at. So it should be interesting, even if it is a tough month.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because we've come up short against teams around us. Not hugely unexpected, but it would be good to start getting some points over these teams that are kind of there or thereabouts with us as well. So we'll see what happens. Before we go, best wishes to the fan who was taken ill at Leyton Orient. I had a look at Star's page today, and they've been covering that. I say covering it, but just making sure that he's all right, and he seems to be back at home. He seems to be doing okay. So
that's good.
Yeah. Thank the police and the emergency services for helping him out big time. So glad you're feeling better and on the mend, and hopefully you can get to a game again pretty soon. Have a good week, everybody. We'll be back, as I said, next Monday. Let's hope we're talking about 6 points as opposed to anything else this time next week. Ross, enjoy your minus 17 degrees or whatever it is.
Enjoy my minus 16 and earthquakes, and you enjoy Burton and Bolton.
We will. Yeah. Have a good week, everybody. Look after yourselves, and come on, you else.